Now joining us for reaction is former Republican Senator from Pennsylvania, Newsmax contributor Rick Santorum. Senator, good to see you. Late Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you as well. I see the stockings there in the background. You know, we talk about the majority leader, Senator Harry Reid, and the thing you do when you think about someone's passing there and served so long in Congress, you want to ask yourself, what do you remember? What have you learned? What would be the answer to that of Harry Reid?
Well, I think John Gizzi did a very good job of sort of laying out the contrast. I think Reid, in many respects, was a transformational figure that put in that sort of mechanized the tremendous split in this country and showed its force in the United States Senate. I mean, when Bob Dole was leader in the 80s and 90s. We were going through that transformation, but Dole was a throwback. He was a throwback to an era where bipartisanship was the way things happened. Democrats and Republicans still talked to each other on a regular basis, and there was an attempt to try to make the Senate work according to the rules the Senate had worked for 100 years. Reid was more part of the transformational type of leader, in the sense that our country, over the last 25 or 30 years, has seen a real split along partisan lines. Republicans have become the conservative party, Democrats the socialist party today, and Reid operationalized that. He mechanized that in the United States Senate and tried to change the rules of the United States Senate so he could get his partisan advantage. They really stopped working with the other side. They shut down a lot of what was considered comedy in the Senate. You know, allowing amendments to be offered, having bills debated on the floor. Yeah. Those became a thing of the past under Harry Reid, and as a result, he became sort of a tool for the hard left of the Democratic Party in the United States Senate and the country.
There's many things you can't mention Harry Reid without mentioning one being a polarizing figure, many touting his rhetoric that he used, most notably against Mitt Romney, saying he didn't pay taxes, said that without proof. When he was asked about that, he said he didn't win, did he? The other point would be the filibuster. In I believe it was 2018, or a few years back, he wrote a penned op-ed rather to get rid of the filibuster. This was posted in the New York Times there. Final thoughts on that, as he was noted as moving the filibuster, changing the rules, if you will, now coming out as not for the filibuster. Final thoughts on that, Rick?
Yeah, he again, a lot of what I've seen in my time in the United States, in the Senate and since, was that leaders really just are very adroit followers. In other words, they simply reflect the will of their caucus, the will of the body that they represent. And the Democratic Party has shifted to, as I mentioned, a socialist party, a party that is interested in power and results and not process, and is willing to throw under the tools of our republic in order to get what they want. And Reid was the first of those leaders to, as I said, operationalize that in the United States Senate. And I think you're seeing, that he's not the last. I mean, Chuck Schumer has taken that and pushed it again. And but for Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, we would not have the filibuster today, because the Democratic Party has moved past process, beyond what are constitutional restrictions, and has decided that they want to be the party that is sort of the authoritarian party and use the levers of our republic to get what they want to do it.
All right, Rick Santorum joining us live here. Rick, thanks so much. We do appreciate that.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.